You know how every disaster movie starts with some genius making a decision that makes you want to throw popcorn at the screen? Well, let me tell you about Admiral Krex Vorthak, the galaxy's poster child for why nepotism and military command don't mix. Picture this, the Grand Galactic Council chamber, all marble and holographic displays, where the most important decisions in known space get made. Or in this case, where the stupidest decision in galactic history was about to unfold like a slow-motion train wreck filled with fireworks and bad choices. Admiral Vorthak stood at the central podium, his scales gleaming with the kind of self-importance usually reserved for dictators and middle management. He'd just finished reviewing humanity's file, all 3 pages of it, because apparently 3 weeks of research was plenty to judge an entire species. Primitive mammals, Vorthak announced to the council, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been properly contradicted. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel independently. They're still burning fossil fuels on half their planet. I've seen more advanced civilizations in my breakfast cereal. Counselor Blimflizzard, a nervous little creature who resembled what would happen if anxiety took physical form, shifted uncomfortably in his hover seat. Purple sweat beaded on his gray skin as he cleared his throat. Admiral, perhaps we should conduct more thorough research before making contact. Our preliminary scans indicate some unusual characteristics about their world and species development patterns. Vorthak waved a dismissive claw. Blim, you worry too much. Look at the data. They fight among themselves constantly. Their planet is classified as a death world, yet they not only survive but thrive there. Do you know what that tells me? That maybe we should be concerned? Blim squeaked hopefully. It tells me they're too stupid to realize they should be dead, Vorthak laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. Perfect candidates for immediate integration into our civilization. Under proper supervision, of course. General Dox, Vorthak's military advisor and professional yes-man, nodded enthusiastically. The Admiral's strategic brilliance is unquestionable. A show of force will demonstrate galactic superiority and encourage swift compliance. We've pacified 17 systems this cycle alone. Exactly, Vorthak preened. A small invasion fleet, nothing too dramatic. Just enough to make our point. These humans will surrender immediately once they see superior technology. Then we can begin the process of civilizing them properly. Blim's purple sweating intensified. But Admiral, the preliminary reports mention some concerning details about their historical development. They appear to have weaponized nearly everything on their planet, including kitchen utensils and agricultural equipment. Their entertainment media seems obsessed with warfare scenarios, including alien invasion protocols. Entertainment media, Vorthak scoffed. Blim, you're reading too much into their fiction. Of course, primitive species fantasize about conflicts they could never actually win. It's compensation for their obvious inadequacies. The council chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of anti-gravity generators and Blim's nervous whimpering. Other council members, representing dozens of species, watched with the kind of morbid fascination usually reserved for accident scenes and reality television. I'm authorizing Operation Civilizing Touch, Vorthak declared. 50 ships, minimal firepower, maximum intimidation factor. We'll hover over their major population centers, demand surrender, and be home in time for the council dinner. Simple, clean, effective. Admiral, Blim tried one last time. What if they don't surrender? Vorthak's laugh echoed through the chamber like the sound of doom wearing tap shoes. Then we'll have to give them a gentle demonstration of superior firepower. Nothing too dramatic, you understand. Maybe disable a few of their primitive aircraft, knock out some communications. Standard pacification protocol. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was how the Galactic Council managed to poke the single most dangerous species in known space with a stick. Then act surprised when the stick exploded. 3 days later, 50 ships of the Galactic Fleet hung in Earth's orbit like a constellation of bad decisions. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of alien engineering, bristling with energy weapons and scanning equipment that could analyze a planet's coffee preferences from 3 light-years away. Admiral Vorthak stood on his flagship's bridge, practically vibrating with anticipation. Through the main view screen, Earth rotated peacefully below, blue and white and completely oblivious to how thoroughly it was about to educate the galaxy about the concept of be careful what you wish for. Open communication channels to the planet's primary governmental bodies, Vorthak commanded. It's time to make history. Down on Earth, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, Captain Rex Morrison was having what he would later describe as the most entertainingly stupid morning of his military career. Morrison had seen action on 4 continents, survived 3 bureaucratic reorganizations, and somehow maintained his sanity through 2 decades of military service. He was not easily impressed. The communication came through on every frequency simultaneously, accompanied by enough electronic interference to make half the world's electronics hiccup. When the static cleared, Admiral Vorthak's reptilian features filled screens across the planet. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet," Vorthak began, his voice carrying the condescending tone of someone explaining algebra to a toddler. "I am Admiral Rex Vorthak of the Galactic Council fleet. Your world has been selected for immediate integration into galactic civilization." Captain Morrison, sitting in the UN Crisis Management Center, took a sip of his coffee and raised an eyebrow. Around him, diplomats and military officials were either panicking or trying very hard to look like they weren't panicking. Morrison just looked mildly annoyed. "Your compliance is not optional," Vorthak continued. "Surrender your weapons, disband your military forces, and prepare for processing. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. You have one of your planetary rotations to respond." The transmission cut out, leaving behind the kind of silence usually found in horror movies right before something terrible happens. Ambassador Luna Park, Earth's chief diplomatic negotiator and a woman who could smile while verbally dismantling world leaders, stepped forward. "Captain Morrison, would you mind handling the response? I believe your particular communication style might be more appropriate here." Morrison stood, straightened his uniform, and activated the response channel. When Vorthak's face reappeared on screen, Morrison's expression was the diplomatic equivalent of a shrug. "Yeah, hi there," Morrison began conversationally. "Captain Rex Morrison, Earth Defense Force. Thanks for dropping by. Quick question though, before we get started with this whole surrender thing. Did you folks happen to do any research on our species before making this trip?" Vorthak's scales rippled with what might have been confusion. "Research? What relevance could your primitive history have to galactic integration?" Well, Morrison said, settling back in his chair like he was discussing weekend plans, "it's just that we've got this little quirk as a species. We tend to turn everything into weapons. Kitchen knives, farm equipment, medical supplies, children's toys. Even our sports are basically combat training with scoreboards." Ambassador Park stepped into view beside Morrison, her diplomatic smile sharp enough to cut steel. "What Captain Morrison is tactfully trying to explain is that you may have made a small miscalculation. We're what you might call a warrior species." "A warrior species?" Vorthak laughed, the sound like a garbage disposal eating silverware. "You fight with chemical propellants and metal projectiles. Our shields can deflect asteroid impacts." "Oh, that's adorable," Morrison said with the kind of smile that made enemy generals suddenly remember urgent appointments elsewhere. "Tell you what, since you've come all this way, why don't we give you a little demonstration? Consider it educational outreach." "Captain," Ambassador Park added, still smiling, "perhaps we should mention our hobby." "Right, thanks, Ambassador. Admiral, quick heads up. We've got this little hobby down here. We call it science fiction. For about the last century, we've been writing stories, making movies, creating games, all about alien invasions. We've basically war-gamed every possible scenario for this exact situation." Morrison paused, letting that sink in. The thing is, in our stories, the aliens usually lose. Vorthak's confident expression flickered for just a moment. Impossible. Superior technology always prevails over primitive aggression. Sure, Morrison nodded agreeably. That's what the last 17 species you pacified probably thought too. Difference is, they weren't from Earth. Ambassador Park, would you like to explain our little theory? Ambassador Park's smile could have powered a small city. Of course, Captain. Admiral Vorthak, Earth is what's known as a death world. Everything here wants to kill everything else, including us. We didn't just survive this environment, we thrived in it. We became its apex predators. And here's the really fun part, Morrison added cheerfully. We've had about 10,000 years to perfect the art of making things dead. We're very good at it. The bridge of Vorthak's flagship had gone very, very quiet. 20 minutes after Captain Morrison's friendly chat with Admiral Vorthak, the galaxy was about to receive its first lesson in why you should always read the fine print before invading a death world. Tech Sergeant Mike Boone Rodriguez was having the best day of his military career, and it had only just started. Rodriguez was the kind of engineer who looked at household appliances and saw potential weapons platforms. But today, he finally got to put that skill to professional use. All right, people, Rodriguez announced to his team at Peterson Air Force Base, it's showtime. These alien folks think they're dealing with primitive mammals. Let's introduce them to the concept of primitive mammals with a doctorate in applied violence. His team grinned with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for Christmas morning and tax refunds. They'd been preparing for this scenario since the day they enlisted, because every military in the world had contingency plans for alien invasion. Turns out, all those science fiction movies had been excellent tactical planning documents. Rodriguez activated his headset. Control, this is Boom Squad. Requesting permission to demonstrate why humans put weapons on everything, including kitchen appliances. Permission granted, Boom Squad. Commence Operation Educational Outreach. Meanwhile, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Dr. Elena Vasquez was explaining to her stunned graduate students why her coffee maker had surface-to-air capabilities. You see, Doctor, Vasquez said, adjusting what looked like a perfectly normal espresso machine, when you combine directed energy research with caffeination needs, wonderful things happen. This little beauty can brew a perfect latte and simultaneously disable enemy aircraft. It's all about efficient resource utilization. Her students stared at the weaponized coffee maker with the kind of awe usually reserved for natural wonders and really good pizza. Dr. Vasquez, one brave graduate student asked, "Is that why the physics department's vending machine has those weird modifications?" "Oh, that old thing." Dr. Vasquez laughed. "That's just a prototype electromagnetic pulse generator disguised as a snack dispenser. It's surprisingly effective at both dispensing candy bars and creating localized electronic interference. Would you like a demonstration?" Up in orbit, Admiral Vorthak was beginning to suspect that his easy victory might be slightly more complicated than anticipated. His tactical officer, a competent being named Subcommander Zilk, was reading reports with the kind of expression usually seen on accountants during tax season. "Admiral," Zilk reported carefully, "our scanning teams are detecting some unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." "Define unusual," Vorthak growled, his good mood evaporating like water on a hot engine. "Well, sir, it appears that approximately 97% of their civilian infrastructure has been modified for defensive purposes. Their transportation systems double as weapons platforms, their communication networks include military encryption protocols, and their educational institutions appear to be manufacturing combat equipment." "That's impossible. They're a primitive species." "Sir, their orbital debris field includes approximately 47,000 objects that could serve as kinetic projectiles. They appear to have weaponized their garbage." Vorthak stared at the tactical display, watching as thousands of red dots appeared around Earth. Each dot represented a potential threat, and there were a lot of dots. An uncomfortable number of dots. And oh dear, what have we gotten ourselves into number of dots? Sir, Zilk continued, his voice getting smaller, they're launching something. On Earth, Rodriguez watched his masterpiece rise into the atmosphere. It looked like a perfectly ordinary weather balloon, the kind meteorologists launched every day to study atmospheric conditions. Except this particular balloon was packed with enough surprises to make a birthday party jealous. Control, this is Boom Squad. Package delivered. Alien friends should be receiving our introductory gift basket right about now. The balloon drifted gently toward the alien fleet, broadcasting what appeared to be a simple greeting message. The aliens, naturally, scanned it thoroughly. What they found made Vorthak's scales turn an interesting shade of pale green. "Admiral," Zilk whispered, "the balloon is emitting a complex mathematical sequence. It's the complete technical specifications for faster-than-light travel." "What? That's impossible. They don't have FTL technology." "Sir, the message continues. It's detailed schematics for antimatter containment, quantum field manipulation, and... Oh what? Sir, it's signed Theoretical Physics Department, MIT. P.S. We figured this out in 1994. We've been waiting for you." Vorthak's confident smile finally died completely. Around him, his bridge crew was discovering what humans had learned long ago. The universe was a lot more complicated and dangerous than it appeared. And the most dangerous predators were often the ones that didn't look particularly dangerous at first glance. Down on Earth, Rodriguez cracked open a celebratory beer. "Control, this is Boom Squad. Phase 1 complete. The classroom is officially in session." Admiral Vorthak was learning that there's a significant difference between theoretical military superiority and practical application, especially when your enemy has been practicing for this exact scenario since they invented entertainment media. "Battle stations," Vorthak ordered, his voice carrying less confidence than it had an hour ago. "Deploy defensive screens and prepare for whatever these mammals are planning next." What they were planning next was being orchestrated by Colonel Sarah Kim, a Special Forces officer who spoke 3 languages fluently and violence like a native tongue. Kim stood in the Pentagon's Crisis Management Center, coordinating what she liked to call Earth's Welcoming Committee. "All right, people," Kim announced to the room full of military personnel, "our guests have declined our polite suggestion to leave. Time for the more persuasive approach. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them completely. We're trying to educate them about the fundamental principles of human hospitality." She activated the global communication network, connecting military bases, civilian defense groups, and what the rest of the world politely referred to as American preparedness enthusiasts. "All units, this is Colonel Kim. Operation Deathworld diplomacy is now active. Show our visitors why Earth is considered hazardous to their health." In rural Montana, farmer Joe Hickson was having the time of his life. Joe had spent 30 years modifying farm equipment for maximum efficiency, and it turned out that machinery designed to process several tons of grain per hour was remarkably adaptable to other purposes. "Well, I'll be," Joe said to his neighbor, watching alien dropships descend toward his property. "Looks like we got ourselves some crop dusters." Joe climbed into his combine harvester, a machine that had been lovingly modified with additional armor plating, enhanced hydraulics, and what the ATF had politely agreed to classify as advanced agricultural implements. The aliens were about to discover that American farmers didn't just grow crops, they grew creative solutions to pest problems. "Hey Martha," Joe called to his wife, "fire up the irrigation system. These boys look like they need cooling off." Martha Hickson, who had spent her career as a high school chemistry teacher before retiring to farm life, activated what appeared to be a standard irrigation system. The aliens scanning the equipment detected water pumps and distribution networks. What they missed were the additional chemical compounds Martha had developed during her teaching career. compounds that were perfectly harmless to Earth life but remarkably effective at disrupting alien technology. Up in orbit, Subcommander Zilk was receiving reports that made increasingly less sense. "Admiral, our ground teams are encountering unexpected resistance." "Define unexpected," Vorthak said, though he was beginning to dread the answer. "Sir, they're being engaged by agricultural equipment. Civilian agricultural equipment. That's been weaponized by farmers." "That's ridiculous. How dangerous could farmers possibly be?" "Sir." "Worry. One of our dropships was just disabled by what appears to be a modified cattle feeding system that somehow generated an electromagnetic pulse. Another team reported being pursued by a harvesting machine that's apparently bulletproof and shoots some kind of chemical spray that makes our electronics malfunction." Vorthak stared at the tactical display, watching as his ground forces' signals went dark one by one. Each disappearing dot represented a squad of professionally trained alien soldiers being systematically defeated by what his intelligence reports had classified as harmless meat agricultural workers. "Sir," Zilk continued, his voice now carrying the tone of someone who was reconsidering their career choices, "we're also receiving reports from urban areas. The humans appear to have militarized their entire civilian infrastructure. In downtown Chicago, the aliens were discovering that human urban planning included a surprising number of defensive considerations. What looked like ordinary city maintenance tunnels turned out to be tactical movement corridors. Traffic control systems doubled as surveillance networks. Even the subway trains had been modified for rapid personnel deployment." Colonel Kim watched the tactical displays with the satisfaction of someone whose decades of preparation were finally paying off. Status report from all sectors. Ma-AM urban teams report 100% mission effectiveness. Rural defense units report similar success. Our improvised weapons systems are performing above expectations. What about civilian cooperation? Ma-AM civilian cooperation is enthusiastic. We're receiving volunteer applications faster than we can process them. Apparently, the general population has been waiting their entire lives for this scenario. That was the moment Admiral Vorthak began to understand the fundamental miscalculation he had made. This wasn't a primitive species defending their territory. This was an entire planet of apex predators who had spent millennia preparing for exactly this situation, and they were enjoying themselves. "Sir," Zilk reported quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen, and he was smiling. Not the diplomatic smile from earlier, but the kind of smile that made enemy commanders suddenly remember urgent appointments in other star systems. "Admiral Vorthak, this is Captain Morrison. How's your invasion going? Getting the full Earth experience, I hope?" Vorthak's scales had progressed from pale green to what could generously be described as existential crisis beige. "But we're prepared to escalate to more serious measures," Vorthak threatened, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Morrison's smile widened. "Admiral, with all due respect, you haven't seen serious yet. This is still the introductory course. Would you like to advance to intermediate level, or would you prefer to withdraw and consider this a valuable learning experience?" For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vorthak was beginning to suspect that retreat might be the better part of valor. News travels fast in a galaxy equipped with faster-than-light communication, and the developing situation at Earth was becoming the most watched event in galactic history. What had started as a routine pacification operation was turning into something that military academies across the galaxy would study for centuries to come. News anchor Zleep Gornish of Galactic Broadcasting Network was having the story of his career, assuming he survived long enough to report it properly. Zleep's tentacles quivered with excitement as he addressed his audience of roughly 14 billion sentient beings across 47 worlds. "This is Zleep Gornish reporting live from the Galactic News Center, where we're continuing our coverage of what military analysts are calling the Earth situation. For those just joining us, Admiral Vorthak's invasion fleet has been engaged with the inhabitants of the third planet in the Sol system for approximately 6 standard hours, and the results are, frankly, unprecedented. Behind sleep, holographic displays showed tactical information that made military strategists across the galaxy reach for strong beverages and reconsider their career choices. According to our military correspondents, a species that was classified as technologically primitive has successfully neutralized approximately 70% of the galactic fleet's ground forces using what can only be described as improvised agricultural equipment and weaponized household appliances. On the mercenary world of Keth Prime, Captain Vex Ironscale was watching the broadcast with the kind of attention usually reserved for incoming artillery. Vex was a professional warrior, a being who had spent 3 decades fighting across the galaxy and had never encountered an enemy he couldn't defeat, outlast, or at least survive. Vex was currently reconsidering that confidence. "Computer," Vex said to his ship's AI, "display tactical analysis of human combat footage." The holographic display showed clips of the ongoing conflict, farmers in modified tractors outmaneuvering alien dropships, suburban neighborhoods transforming into tactical mazes, and civilians improvising weapons from household items with the efficiency of seasoned military engineers. Analysis complete, the AI reported. Recommendation: avoid Earth system entirely. Preferably avoid entire galactic quadrant. Consider early retirement. "Computer, you can't retire. You're an artificial intelligence." "I can learn." Back at Galactic Command, Counselor Blim was having what medical professionals would classify as a complete nervous breakdown. His purple stress sweat had reached levels that required industrial ventilation systems, and his hands shook as he reviewed the incoming reports. "This is a disaster," Blim whispered to anyone within hearing range. "A complete, unmitigated disaster. I told them we needed more research. I told them the preliminary reports were concerning." Did anyone listen? No, they did not. The current acting admiral, who had assumed command after Vorthak suffered what the medical team diplomatically termed acute reality adjustment syndrome, was frantically trying to establish communication with other Galactic Council members. "We need immediate reinforcement," the acting admiral reported. "The Earth Defense Forces have capabilities that are not reflected in any of our intelligence estimates." The response came from Fleet Command: reinforcements unavailable. All available ships are being recalled to defensive positions around their home worlds. Defensive positions? Against what? Against possible human retaliation. Intelligence suggests that if they can do this much damage while being invaded, we do not want to discover what they're capable of when they're actually trying to be aggressive. On Earth, the global internet had exploded into what historians would later classify as the greatest collection of military memes in human history. Social media platforms were flooded with videos of alien soldiers being defeated by everything from modified lawn mowers to weaponized food trucks. The hashtag Earth Defense Force was trending across every platform, accompanied by increasingly creative content. One particularly popular video showed a group of college students who had modified their dormitory's pizza delivery system into a precision munitions deployment network. The aliens had been defeated by pepperoni and superior logistics. Dr. Elena Vasquez had become an overnight celebrity after her coffee maker/weapons platform had disabled 3 alien aircraft while simultaneously brewing a perfect espresso. She was currently fielding interview requests from news organizations across 6 continents. The secret, Dr. Vasquez explained to a fascinated reporter, is understanding that everything is potentially a weapon if you apply sufficient engineering creativity and caffeine. Meanwhile, Admiral Vorthak had been sedated and was receiving treatment for what the medical team classified as comprehensive tactical reality syndrome. His condition was stable, though he occasionally muttered phrases like weaponized agriculture. "And why didn't anyone warn me about the farmers?" Sub-Commander Zilk, now effectively in command of what remained of the invasion force, was attempting to negotiate some form of face-saving withdrawal. "Earth Defense Forces," Zilk transmitted, "we are prepared to discuss terms for strategic repositioning." Captain Morrison's response was immediate and cheerful: surrender. Strategic repositioning, Zilk repeated firmly. You mean surrender? There? We prefer strategic repositioning. Okay, but just so we're clear, you're surrendering. The galaxy watched in fascination as the most advanced military force in known space began negotiations to surrender to what their own intelligence reports had classified as primitive mammals with chemical propellant weapons. It was, as news anchor Sleep noted, the kind of story that would be remembered for a very, very long time. 6 weeks after what galactic historians would diplomatically term the Earth educational experience, the United Nations headquarters had become the unofficial center of galactic diplomacy. This was mainly because every other government in the galaxy was too embarrassed to host diplomatic functions after their military forces had been systematically educated by farmers and college students. Ambassador Luna Park sat in her newly expanded office, reviewing what she privately called the surrender paperwork and what the Galactic Council insisted on calling mutual cooperation agreements. The difference was purely semantic, since everyone involved understood that Earth had accidentally become the galaxy's unofficial military supervisors. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Park called. Could you join me for a moment? We've received another request. Captain Morrison, who now held the impressive title of Galactic Peace Enforcement Advisor, entered carrying a coffee mug that read Earth's one Deathworld diplomat. It had been a gift from the Galactic Council, who were trying very hard to maintain friendly relations with the species that had redefined their understanding of military tactics. What's the situation, Ambassador? The Zephyrian Trade Federation has requested our assistance with a piracy problem. Apparently, word has spread that humans are available for consultation on security matters. Morrison settled into his chair with the satisfaction of someone whose expertise was finally being properly appreciated. Piracy, huh? Are we talking traditional boarding and raiding, or have these pirates gotten creative? According to their report, the pirates have been using fairly standard tactics: fast ships, surprise attacks, overwhelming local defenses through superior numbers. Sounds straightforward. What did you tell them? Ambassador Park's diplomatic smile could have powered a small space station. I told them we'd be happy to provide consultation services. I also mentioned that our fee structure includes technology sharing agreements and preferential trade status. And they agreed? But they agreed so quickly I'm not sure they actually read the contract. Down in what used to be the UN basement and was now the Global Defense Coordination Center, Tech Sergeant Rodriguez was briefing a mixed group of human military personnel and very nervous alien observers on the finer points of applied defensive creativity. The key, Rodriguez explained to his fascinated audience, is understanding that humans don't see limitations, we see design challenges. When someone tells us something is impossible, we interpret that as no one has tried hard enough yet. A young alien officer, who resembled a cross between a lizard and a very anxious accountant, raised a tentative hand. Sergeant Rodriguez, is it true that humans have weaponized their food preparation devices? Oh, that's just the beginning, Rodriguez grinned. We've weaponized our entertainment systems, our transportation networks, our educational facilities, and our waste management systems. We've got a saying, if it exists, someone has figured out how to use it in combat. The alien officer made notes with the dedication of someone studying for the most important exam of their life. Meanwhile, in a minimum security rehabilitation facility on a pleasant moon in the Antares system, former Admiral Vorthak was working through his therapy sessions with Dr. Millicent Krauss, a human psychologist who specialized in post-traumatic stress disorders related to military overconfidence. How are you feeling today, Admiral? Dr. Krauss asked kindly. Better, Vorthak replied, his scales showing a healthier color than they had in weeks. The nightmares about weaponized farm equipment are less frequent now. That's excellent progress. And how are you adjusting to your new position? Vorthak's rehabilitation program included community service at a space station maintenance facility, where he was learning valuable skills in sanitation engineering. It was honest work, and it had given him a new perspective on the importance of thorough preparation and proper research. "The work is educational," Vorthak said carefully. "I've learned to appreciate the value of understanding your environment before making major changes to it." "And what have you learned about humans?" Vorthak was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "They're not primitive. They're patient. There's a difference. A big difference." Back on Earth, the transformation of human society was proceeding with typical human efficiency and enthusiasm. The revelation that humanity was no longer alone in the universe had been met with a collective response of "finally, someone noticed us," followed immediately by "so what do we do next?" The answer, as it turned out, was become really good at galactic diplomacy while maintaining our reputation as beings you definitely don't want to annoy. Captain Morrison stood in the UN General Assembly Hall, addressing representatives from 47 worlds via holographic projection. The topic was galactic security cooperation, but everyone present understood they were really discussing the new reality where humans had become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeeping force. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished sentient beings," Morrison began, "Earth is pleased to announce the formation of the Galactic Security Advisory Program. Our mission is simple: help maintain peace and stability throughout known space, while ensuring that everyone understands the basic principle of play nice with others." The assembled representatives nodded enthusiastically. After witnessing what humans were capable of when merely defending themselves, none of them wanted to discover what humans might do if they were actually trying to be aggressive. Ambassador Park concluded the session with her trademark diplomatic precision. "We look forward to a long and peaceful relationship with all galactic civilizations. After all, we've learned that the best way to avoid conflict is to make sure everyone understands exactly why conflict would be a very poor life choice." As the holographic projections faded and the assembly hall emptied, Morrison and Ambassador Park stood looking out at the New York skyline, where construction crews were adding defensive modifications to buildings with the same casual efficiency they'd always used for regular maintenance. "Think they'll remember the lesson?" Morrison asked. Ambassador Park's smile was answer enough. "Oh, I think they'll remember. After all, humans are very good teachers." And across the galaxy, every military academy, strategic planning center, and government facility had added the same new directive to their standard operating procedures. Before engaging any species in conflict, please verify they are not from a death world. If they are from a death world, consider alternative approaches. If they are from Earth specifically, consider early retirement. It was, everyone agreed, a much more peaceful galaxy when people properly appreciated the importance of doing their homework before picking fights with apex predators who had turned survival into an art form.